What happens when the passing of a political figure becomes more than a private loss? When it becomes a national conversation, stirring headlines, igniting debates, and dividing public opinion? That's exactly what we saw after the news broke of Charlie Kirk's passing. For some, it was a moment of deep sorrow, remembering a man who dedicated his life to shaping the conservative movement. For others, it was a moment of criticism, pointing to the sharp divisions he left behind. And for the media, it became a story that reflected the polarization of our times. Today, we explore the public reaction to Charlie Kirk's passing, from his supporters, his critics, and the political world that he influenced so strongly. Charlie Kirk was never a background character in American politics. He was bold, outspoken, and determined to amplify conservative values across the nation. As the founder of Turning Point USA, he became a leading voice for young conservatives, focusing on free markets, cultural identity, and challenging progressive dominance on college campuses. Love him or hate him, Kirk made sure his voice was heard, and that's why his death immediately set off waves of reaction across social media, television, and political circles. Among his supporters, the news of his passing was met with heartbreak. Fans described him as a fearless defender of free speech and a fighter for conservative principles. Many took to social media platforms like X, Facebook, and Instagram to share personal stories of how Kirk had inspired them to speak out, get involved in politics, or stand firm in their beliefs despite criticism. Hashtags with his name began trending, filled with tributes, prayers, and emotional messages honoring his legacy. To these supporters, Charlie Kirk was not just a political activist. He was a mentor and a role model. But not all reactions were positive. His critics, many of whom had clashed with his ideas, expressed a very different perspective. They saw his passing as the end of a chapter in what they viewed as divisive politics. Some argued that while he championed free speech, his rhetoric often inflamed tensions and deepened cultural divides. For them, his legacy was complicated, marked by sharp confrontations and a style of activism that sometimes felt more combative than constructive. These critical voices revealed just how polarizing Kirk was, even in death. The media's reaction was equally telling. Conservative outlets framed Kirk's passing as a tremendous loss for the movement, celebrating his achievements, his courage, and his ability to mobilize a generation of young activists. They highlighted his dedication, his energy, and his role in shaping the future of conservative politics in America. On the other hand, progressive media outlets took a more critical tone, emphasizing the controversies that surrounded his activism and questioning whether his confrontational approach contributed to the growing hostility in American political culture. This duality of coverage showed how even in death, Charlie Kirk remained a figure who symbolized America's divide. Political leaders also weighed in, adding another layer to the public reaction. Several conservative figures offered heartfelt tributes, calling him a visionary who gave strength to conservative voices on college campuses and beyond. They praised his fearlessness and his ability to stand firm against cultural pressures. Meanwhile, some progressive politicians and commentators acknowledged his influence, but criticized the way he used it, arguing that his methods often widened political rifts. The mixed reactions from the political world highlighted the reality that Charlie Kirk's influence was impossible to ignore, regardless of which side of the aisle one stood on. One of the most significant themes in the public reaction was the conversation about legacy. Supporters celebrated his role in empowering young conservatives and shaping political discourse, while critics questioned whether his confrontational style will be remembered as constructive or damaging. But both sides agreed on one thing. Charlie Kirk left a mark. His passing wasn't just the end of a life. It was the beginning of a debate about what he truly represented and how his influence will be remembered in the years to come. For many fans, the emotional weight of his passing was personal. They remembered not just his speeches or media appearances, but the way he connected with individuals at events, encouraged young voices to take leadership, and gave them a sense of belonging in the conservative movement. These personal stories flooded online spaces, creating a digital memorial that reflected the bond between Kirk and those he inspired. At the same time, critics used the moment to reflect on the dangers of polarizing politics. They argued that Kirk's style of activism, while effective in mobilizing supporters, also made compromise and dialogue more difficult. Some worried that his legacy might inspire future activists to adopt an even more combative approach, further entrenching the divisions that already dominate American politics. What makes the public reaction to Charlie Kirk's passing so striking is how it mirrors the current state of America itself. His supporters and critics didn't just express their feelings about him. They revealed the deeper battle of ideas happening in the country today. Free speech, cultural identity, political activism, media bias. All of these themes came to the surface as people reacted to his death. In this way, his passing became a national reflection point, reminding us of the issues that continue to define and divide American society. For the media, the story of his death also raised ethical questions. How should a polarizing figure be remembered? Should coverage focus on accomplishments, controversies, or both? Some outlets attempted to strike a balance, offering a nuanced perspective that acknowledged both his influence and his controversies. But in today's hyperpartisan environment, most coverage fell along predictable lines, reinforcing the divisions that Kirk himself often highlighted during his life. Looking ahead, the political implications of his passing are still unfolding. The movement he built through Turning Point USA remains active, and his supporters are already talking about how to continue his work. His critics, meanwhile, see his death as an opportunity to push back against the style of politics he represented. The future of his legacy will depend on how these competing narratives evolve and who ultimately carries forward his ideas. So, what can we learn from the public reaction to Charlie Kirk's passing? More than anything, it shows that politics doesn't stop for death. In fact, moments like these often amplify debates, forcing people to confront uncomfortable truths about leadership, ideology, and legacy. For Kirk, his passing became not just an ending, but a moment of reckoning, a chance for America to reflect on the values he championed, the controversies he sparked, and the influence he leaves behind. Whether you see him as a hero who gave voice to the voiceless or a divisive figure who fueled polarization, one fact remains clear. Charlie Kirk made an impact. His passing stirred reactions that revealed as much about the state of America as they did about the man himself. And in that way, his story will continue to be told, debated, and remembered, long after the initial headlines fade.